Good morning, Derek.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
It is early for a
It,
Saturday.
I think I just had a bucket of coffee when we were talking to Irah Nox, but that's why we're talking about it right now.
Yeah,
It is early. The day has begun. We just had a fascinating conversation that we were talking about now preemptively. Irah Nox. We had Logan, Ian, and Rick from the band sit in and talk to us about their process, about how they became a band, about their deathcore roots, about how there's a little Suicide Silence story or two in there, Torn Within, and a few bands that maybe nobody's heard of. That's more of the experimental stuff on the Denver range. Anyway, they just had an hour long conversation with us about the way they do it differently and how deep in thought they get when they write their music. And it reflects on their record. I feel like I learned quite a bit, even though we had this conversation with them once at Black Sky
yeah, we
before we
tried.
had to re-record. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So, uh,
yeah,
thanks to Black Sky Brewery, even though we didn't end up recording and releasing the session we did at their facility, they still hooked us up with some amazing pizza, and we love those guys over there. So if you're in Denver, go to Black Sky Brewery.
yeah. I
Have some.
wanted to give a shout out to Harry at Black Sky and Harry
Absolutely.
and CJ and the whole staff because they were super cool to us that day. It just turned out that the audio just wasn't salvageable. There was just that we had what do we have like four mics on the table. We picked up like everything going on in the building, so
We
it
heard the
was just too
machines,
much.
we heard the heavy metal marketplace. There were a lot of things happening that day, and it was a
Yeah,
lot of fun because we were riding high after the Brayburn showcase the night before at HQ. But I think today was a good way to kind of reset and talk to the boys about the next things they're doing and give us all a little something to think about community wise and crew driven goals. It's exactly why we do this podcast, and this is episode number 4. Sorry if I'm getting messages as we go here.
all right,
I think we just got the mix back for circling over, so got to listen to
nice,
that now.
nice.
But nonetheless, a lot of cool things are happening, and we're very excited to show all of you that are here on this podcast process with us, listening to us, joining us in this trip. Uh, how we can do these things a little differently, how we can color outside the lines, like you like to say.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to mention about this episode?
I just know for me this conversation was a lot of fun because it's rare and special that I not only get to talk to musicians I admire, and talking to, Ian and Rick and Logan, they're incredible players, but who also happen to be kindred spirits and who approach the music and approach composition and approach inspiration in a similar way.
Right.
So it was really fun not only to have those common points, but to hear, the unique ways that they go about thinking about their music and thinking about how they create it, hearing about their intentionality, and how they channel that into their creation. And so exactly as you said, also like talking to people, we've been lucky, with this whole podcast, talking to people who are, and it was part of our vision, but it's rad to see it come to fruition, talking to people who are above all community minded, you know, the,
Absolutely.
you know, and getting to have these conversations that remind us all that we get through this together. We're not working against each other. We only win when we're working with each other, you know, and,
Amen. I think that's
and
that's our
hearing
new
Irah
tagline right
Nox.
there.
Yeah. And hearing Irah Nox, continue to expound on that, it was inspiring and refreshing. And it was a fantastic conversation. So,
Absolutely. I think that's enough intro. Let's give it a little listen. Here we
yeah.
are, Six Disc Changer, talking to Irah Nox, episode number 4. Hey, everybody. Six Disc Changer is back for more. Derek and Mike here for episode number 4. And we have some special guests today. This is actually attempt number 2 at this podcast. We got together at Black Sky Brewery, and they were super rad. They were way awesome. They let us sit in the brewery section, set up our mics. It happened to be the heavy metal market that day. and we invited the Irah Nox boys over right after our big show on February 22nd. That Brayburn Showcase was a good way for them to say hello to Denver and play their first show in Denver. But we realized that the audio inside that awesome brewery was a little too noisy. So we're redoing the podcast part, but we wanted to shout out to Black Sky because they took care of us. They gave us some pizza that day. They hooked us up with some beverages, and we had a lot of fun hanging out, reminiscing. So now we're a couple more weeks out, and we're back with the Irah Nox boys. We've got Ian and Rick from
And
Irah
Logan.
Nox.
And
Oh, hey
Logan.
Logan, I just saw you log in, man. What's up?
What up?
How you guys doing?
Oh, doing pretty good.
Sorry to have to redo this, but we found ourselves in a spot where we want to hear what you're saying a little more. So let's do this again, shall we? Who wants to start? You guys, two out of three of you have instruments on you. We gonna start with some music or what?
Right?
Oh, I can't see. Yeah.
Wade in the water,
There we go. Now we're
wade in the water,
Right?
children. No, I
Exactly.
mean, I'll start. Yeah, this is really nice to gather with you guys since we don't do it that frequently. So I'm happy to, you know, be in conversation with y'all, Logan, Ian, Mike, and Derek. So yeah, just kind of stoked. Excited to see where this conversation goes, and yeah, if I have any stories to contribute about Irah Nox, I will definitely inform your audience.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to kick off. Like part of the point of this podcast, um, one of the things that inspired Derek and I was to talk to people who have unique stories about their passions and endeavors, and stories that seem to be just slightly outside of, the norm. Like my joke is always people who color outside the lines. And, having started to build friendships with you guys, and being a huge fan of you all as musicians and music. To me, it's really interesting even how Irah Nox formed, how you guys exist like right now, and how you went about the album. All of that stuff I find really cool, and it's nothing like most of the bands I've been in or my friends are in. So I would love it if you guys could share like how you guys formed the band and how you guys went about creating such a killer record, first of all, but doing it the way you did it, considering you're not all in the same place.
I'll start and then I'll pass it over to Ian. Um, so I guess Irah Nox starts out of a band called Torn Within, which was an outfit that had began in California and it sort of revived itself, sometime during the pandemic. Um, Logan ended up joining this band that was mainly based in California. Um, so we started Torn Within up with members in Colorado and members in California. Started playing a few shows and networking in Denver, which is how we met Ian. And then went to California to play a show. Torn Within did not come back as a band from that trip. So shout out to all the bands who are together. It's a blessing every day that you are a band, you are a success because it's not a given. That's what I learned from that experience. So came back from came back from California to Colorado, um, not with a band, and I communicated that first to you, Mike, and then second to Ian. Um, and in that conversation with Ian was a lot of like, hey, there was possibilities of Ian being a second guitar player for Torn Within. And so part of that conversation was like, hey, Ian, sorry, that is definitely not going to happen anymore. Um, and I think we regrouped, maybe a month later. And then, if you don't mind sharing some of what you remember, Ian.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I remember just, networking with a lot of people in the Denver area, trying to find a group that I vibe with, or at least another person or guitar player to vibe with, because I was looking to, you know, be in a band specifically with another guitar player. Um, And so I remember, reaching out to Rick. And then it was several months later that he reached back to me, probably after I learned a couple of Torn Within songs and sent them to him. Because I was, you know, I really wanted to join something with death metal influence and hardcore influence, and metalcore influence and stuff like that. So yeah, I heard a lot of things that I liked in Torn Within and just pitched myself, and Rick offered to write a song with me. He had one that was partially written, and it ended up being Fallen Angel Demon Mess. So he just kind of tasked me with writing a second movement to this song. And I did my best. I tried to incorporate some of the things I had learned while learning Torn Within, and trying to learn Rick's style. And somewhere in there, I found out that Rick was the original guitar player for Suicide Silence. And I was like, whoa, damn.
Yeah.
And then I ended up like creeping and researching him and finding videos on YouTube and learning more about that. Cause I, was a fan of Suicide Silence in my teenager years. But I didn't like dive into the history. I think I was kind of like mainstream. I found out about the cleansing, and I jammed that and bought some Silence t-shirts from Hot Topic,
Same.
but I didn't know like the deep history and lore of the band. So I learned a lot when researching Rick's history, and yeah, man, like I felt like the song that we had originally worked on together for Torn Within was really cool, and I just hoped that he liked it, and I remember going to a Torn Within show at, oh gosh, Moe's Barbecue, I think it was, and
Yeah, that's where I
meeting.
saw them.
Cool, yeah, yeah, and I remember meeting some of the band, and um, I remember moshing quite hard, and yeah, I had a ton of fun meeting all the guys, and then when I found out that Torn Within was no longer a thing, I was pretty bummed, because I was looking forward to that, and I was like, oh great, here we go, another missed opportunity, But um, Rick reassured me in the conversation that he still wanted to write together and see what would come of it. And shortly after, we set out to write an album together, and that is what you hear on Mortal Origin.
We
One of
didn't.
the things that I'm sorry, you don't mind me jumping in real quick. One other fun factor about the way you guys did this was, Ian, you live on the other side of the hills, right? Like you're 6 hours away from Denver. You're in Montrose.
Yeah,
Right. Okay. I just wanted to point that out. So, in doing all of this, you guys started writing a record remotely, which is part of the interesting part of the story. Sorry, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that kind of getting into that album, we didn't have. First off, we didn't have a name called Irah Nox at that time, and we didn't ask Logan yet to be a part of this project. We didn't have Jason. We didn't have Danny. We didn't have a vocalist at all. So the idea was like, here's um here's some song titles inspired by some Stephen King books I was reading, and I sent this document like a blueprint for an album, but like a short of a spreadsheet. But here's 9 song titles or 8, and here's some theme ideas, and here's an asterisk for this theme to be tagged to this song, and this other theme to be tagged to that song.
Very cool.
And I said, Ian, could you spearhead half of these songs? Like sketch out drums and sketch and put one guitar channel in here. As guitar players, whether it's 2 or 1, typically when you write a song, you're like, all right, I'll write this guitar part and I'll pan it for this channel, and then I'm going to do the second guitar channel, and I might play unison or I might play something different. But either way, like one guitar player is writing a song usually with 2 guitars. And so I knew Ian was very dedicated to guitar, and I knew that Ian would want his riffs to be heard, to be expressed, and unimpeded. And I am the same way. So So I said, Ian, try writing a song, but just don't like do your best to not include a second guitar part. Like just write a song that has one channel of guitar and then send it back to me and let me express myself and let my riffs be heard. And so we did our best to exchange songs in this way where we're listening to the other person's guitar part and in some cases playing unison, in some cases learning the parts that they were playing, but in most cases being like, yo, that's cool, but I'm gonna vibe with the guitar in this way. Almost like when you're playing in a room live and you're just jamming, like true jam bands, not death metal. um, you listen to people, you're improvising, and you first and foremost you're listening to what the other members are doing, and then you try to play something different, something in a different space. So this album sort of takes shape starting from this point of like, Ian, I want to hear your guitar, but I also want to do my own thing. And then, we did recruit Logan shortly after. And yeah, I don't know, Logan, maybe you can speak on this beginning of Irah Nox and the album.
Yeah. Well, I was part of the Turn Within band, the live band, and enjoyed playing some very cool shows with Torn Within. And like Rick said, we went out to do a California show and didn't really come back intact. And we were pretty bummed out at first, but I know Rick was still, had something going. And I'd put I play in B flat standard. Those guys are in drop B flat, but I had big, huge strings on one of my basses for this. And Rick gave me a call like a week later, and he was like, "Did you change the strings on your bass yet?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "Well, don't touch them. There's something's happening. I'll stand by." And so it might have been a month later that I heard something, or I'm not sure how much longer it was, but eventually I got a call from Rick that was like, "You want to come over and track some bass? Like, here's some tunes. Here's what we're working on." And it was really exciting. And I like the collaborative nature of recording the album remotely. It was really cool. Everybody kind of got to be themselves. And, Rick is a really great producer. He really trusts everybody who got involved in this band to have the right taste for where they fit, where their thing fits in the tune. And it came together pretty naturally. I know Jason came along, our drummer came along last. But Danny's a fantastic vocalist. We don't, I think last time we did this podcast, we mentioned it like once, but he's an incredible vocalist. And just as all these people came together and I got to be part of it, it was really, really felt special because it's like, man, everybody's a ringer,
Yeah. That's one of my favorite things about, definitely about Irah Nox is just the incredible level of musicianship. But I know, before I had met Ian, when I had met, I met Rick through Torn Within. And I remember the first time seeing you guys play, and I was just blown away by Rick's playing. And it was fun to see Logan, because I saw Logan up on stage at the same show. I didn't know you were in Torn Within. And Logan and I have only recently have we started really becoming friends, I would say. But I've known who Logan was for a minute, but I've known you through experimental bands, I would call them.
Yeah, weird stuff.
Yeah, weird music, weird fun music, but definitely weird music. So it was rad seeing you just shred some heavy music. It's I don't want to say I didn't think I had it in you, or you had it in you, but I had never just imagined you in that scenario.
I can play anything.
Oh no, I know. And
keep proving it, man. Keep proving it.
Yeah.
And like to.
Yeah,
So.
definitely. Yeah, and you're able to do that thing and I was never very good at this, but you're definitely able to do that thing where you're in multiple projects, like a lot of projects at once. I was never very good at that because I get so focused on projects I'm in, and they consume, my mindset as far as how I'm composing for them and how I'm writing for them. So it's impressive that you're able to put these things in lanes and channels and find, the energy and the inspiration you need to be so proficient and add so much to Irah Nox.
They kind of feed each other.
Right.
They kind of feed each other, and they keep your fingers wiggling a lot, and that helps.
Definitely.
I want to second that. Thanks for pointing that out, Mike. Because I would tend to fall in the same boat as you, Mike, when it comes to the focus on a project and your mindset when composing, especially. That's a really cool point of how impressive it is that Logan is in so many different awesome, amazing projects. So, thank you for pointing that out. And I wanted to agree.
Well, I also love that Rick brought up, because this is something him and I have talked about, and it's sort of a segue into, this is a question that we asked last time we tried to do this at the end of the episode, but since we're doing, episode part 2, the revenge, might as well bump it up. I love that you were writing to a theme. That's something I really love to do, and I've been a lyricist before, but because I'm not currently in Suicide Cages, I do try to have a specific emotive theme when I'm writing, and I love that you guys were writing to Stephen King. Like that's so cool. Like, how did that idea come about, and how did you guys, go about expressing your thoughts through those using it?
I was reading a book called Later, which is, I don't know, a classic sort of detective novel, but Stephen King's twist on it is there's a supernatural element to it. And I was also finishing up Desperation, which is also supernatural, a demonic creature living in the crevice of the earth in Nevada, and some story about miners going inside this mine and not coming back out. And um, anyways, Stephen King, supernatural for me. My wife's a big Stephen King fan, so that's how that came about. But also just this supernatural element. I enjoy that aesthetic and that word better than deathcore and horror. And Stephen King is obviously a horror novelist, but just the word supernatural gravitates to me personally because I feel as though that there are supernatural forces at play. And I would love to be able to say with people around me, but I think with myself in general, there's a war going on for good or for evil. I hate to talk about it in such like what seems like cosmic words or
Oh, no, it's fine.
vocabulary of like, oh, there's a battle within me with good and evil, but I can't help it. I truly feel mentally. I think it is just a theme of mankind in general in this time that we're living in of like, we all have positive self-talk and negative self-talk. And it seems with me that when things are quiet, when I'm getting ready to go to bed, there's, I'm left in the silence of my own thoughts. And when I start paying attention, I notice that the negative tends to be more prevalent. And there have been several occasions where, again, this is the war with inside myself part, supernatural, whatever, where I start to feel terrified. And I'm laying there and I feel like I can't breathe or I feel like I can't get up. I'm trying to get up. Sounds crazy, right? But I don't know how else to explain the supernatural element. But yeah, there's this terrifying part of when the negativity voice in your head takes over and it can like drive you sick. And if we're to put this back into movie perspective or a book, it's like everyone can think of psychological thrillers where like this main character thinks something terrible is happening, but really it's not happening in the world around them. It's happening in their head. And to me, that's I would prefer to frame deathcore um, and music that uses words like breakdowns and mosh pits and people going crazy and all this that type of energy. I prefer to put this artistic sort of element to it rather than just be like I'm just trying to be as brutal as I can be to be as brutal as I can be. Um, I like to frame it with the artistic element because at the end of the day, this is music, and I do feel as though that deathcore is an authentic genre, and it's no different than classical music or blues. Has a different way that it started, and it has different characters who play it. But yeah, so for me, it was important to sort of be like, hey, these song titles that I chose them for this reason. They're related to this supernatural element. They're related to this war within inside oneself. They're related to darkness. They're related to deathcore. And this is how this is all going to fit together.
Yeah, I'll pick it up from there because I want to, like, when we were first talking about making an album, it seemed like a super huge task, right? Like, okay, easy to say, harder to do. And um, I was like thinking if I have a hard time like organizing my thoughts sometimes. And so Rick did me a solid and put some of his thoughts into this perfectly done outline. And it really helped me stay focused on what I was trying to accomplish with composition, right? And when he gave me the list of song titles and themes and explained what they were, I felt really connected to it because uh, the this like battle within your mind and all the self-talk that Rick is referring to when there's not engaging things going on around us is something I experience on a regular basis because I'm legally blind and have been a stay-at-home dad for 9 years. And now my kids are at school for a lot of the day. And I have to figure out how to organize my thoughts and deal with an insane amount of self-reflection and self-talk. Um, and it is super I connected with like so I don't think of things in terms quite as like supernatural as Rick does, but I can obviously relate to them and understand them. And in those terms, I feel like there's a lot of room to be super creative. So yeah, just like, you know, it gave me this thing to latch onto, something that was very relatable. And I think that's what led to the feeling of like these things naturally coming together. You know what I mean? The songs. So, yeah, I um, really enjoyed being able to like spearhead half of this and in a direction that like my mind was going, and then also get the feedback from where Rick would go with his songs, and then like sometimes these styles would start to mesh, right? And uh, it made for a really fun experience.
Well, it's a lot
Really,
of fun to listen to, that's for sure. I'm sorry to interrupt. Uh, I I can't tell you how fun it is to listen to the record, and every time I listen to it, something else pops out. The way you guys play so many different parts and so many different things, and call them breakdowns or call them change ups or call them whatever you do, there's 55 of those in every song, and it's so much fun to listen to as a listener, and a fan of the music itself. Mortic Origin is a masterpiece, guys. You've done well. You've done very well, and it's a lot of fun to hear how you put it together and how you guys put so much thought into it, because I think that blueprint must have done very well for all of you, and I'm excited to be a part of it, and I can't stop telling everybody else to listen to it.
oh, thanks, Derek.
Man.
That means
Yeah.
a lot. It means a lot to hear those words spoken into the universe.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And well, I want to hear before we move on, like Logan, like where did you come in as the album was being composed?
Uh, Rick, how much stuff did you guys have written? You had a couple of songs, right?
We had a couple, and we were at the point of like, hey, we want to put out a single before this album comes out.
Yeah.
So you better record this one first and then record this one next. And then we decided between two songs, like, okay, which one do we want to deliver first?
Yeah. A couple months in, as they were writing stuff, Rick sent me some tunes, and I was like, well, that sounds like Rick. And I was like, who's this other guy? Man, he rips. there's another the other guitarist is it's like, so that's Ian. That's the blind dude who came to our show at Moe's. No shit. Like,
Right.
awesome.
The
And
blind guy in the pit, dude.
Yeah,
Like, for
yeah,
real.
oh yeah.
remembering that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
Yep.
That's my boy.
Yeah, I listened to the tunes and worked on some stuff and went over to Rick's and tracked some stuff, and it was cool to hear another kind of piece added to the puzzle. I'm not sure if Danny's vocals were in the works yet, where obviously, like, early on, like, a lot of the drums were a lot more minimal, and or just not as polished and stuff yet. So when you're doing this multi-tracking thing, especially remotely, sometimes you just get to hear a little bit of you don't get to see the whole puzzle. You just get to see the edge pieces are on it or something, like and so a lot of what I was doing was kind of following Rick, as kind of like bolstering the rhythm guitar. But as things evolved and there were more harmony things going on, there was a lot more of me, like, either doing some kind of harmony or covering chords while Rick went off to do harmony stuff with what Ian was playing. And so we kind of evolved a cool, like, space for the bass to do some noodly thrash stuff, but also some kind of blackened sounding Slayer chords. And I know, as we were tracking stuff, I showed Rick, I was like, here's what I call them, the Lemmy chords, but it's like the fifth inversion, middle two strings, or the minor third or the major third, a bunch of dyad chords or split shell chord things. And I was like, well, these are the four options, and they sound differently evil and heavy in this way. And it's like, you let me know which ones are appropriate where, and we'll do those. And that's how I got involved and started tracking stuff. And yeah, it was. I forget, Rick. Do you remember what the first song we tracked was?
I think we tracked Deadlight first, and then we tracked Noctum second.
Okay, yeah, it was. And then I met Ian. Came down for that Bandcamp weekend.
Yeah.
Shortly after, so that was really cool. The first time the three of us were kind of hanging out in Rick's, basement, working on stuff. We were geeking out for sure. We were, each playing stuff and listening back and being like, yeah, do that. That was really cool. It's like, that sounded sick. Do it again. So that's pretty much.
That's rad.
Yeah.
There is a particular and special alchemy between the three of you, and I know that it's special for a lot of reasons. And one of the reasons I really wanted you guys on the pod is because, again, as we talk about people who go about things uniquely, you guys are three of my absolute favorite players, definitely in Denver right now. But I would say, of every band you're up there for me, like because all of you approach your instruments in really, really creative ways. And Logan, I knew, Rick, when you and I met, like, I met you after seeing you on stage. Ian, it was rad because when I first got into contact with Ian, it was to beg him to put my band on a Spotify playlist. And which he did. We were super grateful. That was like one of the first times anyone had done that for us, and I'll never forget that. It was super awesome. But I didn't even know you played at that point, Ian. So, like, when I heard that you were part of this, I was just like, oh, I wonder what that's going to sound like, what that's going to be like, and it's just all three of you have such unique styles, as far as how you approach the instrument. And that's a thing I wanted to ask about. Like, it's we've talked about how important it is and how incredible and impactful it can be to have specific emotive and spiritual influences on how you compose. But I'd love to hear from all three of you, like some of the other musicians or even other artists. Like it doesn't even have to be musicians that inform, your styles and how you approach your instrument.
Yeah, I guess I can start with that. For me and Mike, it's cool that you mentioned about the playlist stuff. I just wanted to touch real quick about how I got into the scene and like met some of you guys. It was just through support. Like I'm a musician. I have been for my whole life, and I've always played like my own thing. I've never spent a ton of time like learning cover songs and like getting into a lot of bands and yeah, so like I got into the scene just by like helping musicians that I like and that I, gravitate towards. And so I my influences mainly come from metal and like post-hardcore. I know a lot of you guys are big into OG hardcore. I guess I'm a little younger than y'all, not by too much, but uh, yeah, I got like big into post-hardcore, and that's kind of my experience with it. So I guess, um, you know, when it comes to composing with Irah Nox, what comes out is a lot of that, a lot of um, like Circus Survive and kind of stuff that's more proggy. I'm super into prog. So yeah, I guess I just like when I like what I want to hear is all of my influences combined, right? So being in a deathcore band is a fun and unique challenge. It's the first time I've ever been in a deathcore band is this band. But I love deathcore and I'm really passionate about metal in general. So to be able to be able to, combine a lot of those things like prog and post-hardcore and even new metal. Um, it's a lot of fun for me to try and like weave these influences together, but with a specific purpose of, you know, creating heavy metal. So yeah, my influences, I guess, like span all across rock for the most part. I'm not as well versed in folk or electronic or things like that like you guys are. Um, I have a young family. My dad brought me up, and my mom, because she's into music too. They brought me up on like old Metallica and Black Sabbath and um, you know everything like 70s, 80s, 90s rock and metal kind of stuff. So that's where my influence all stems from.
Nice.
I think I said it last time, but Slayer and Metallica are like the Beatles and the Stones to us. I think we all grew up learning to do those chuggy riffs, to all that stuff. I didn't even play guitar for years, and I could or wouldn't consider myself a guitarist or a bass player for a couple of years, and I could play intros to Metallica songs and stuff because it's just those are staples,
The gateway.
The gateway, yeah. I mean, Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll go. I also like prog and fusion a whole lot, and try to drag elements of all that into what we're doing for sure. I couldn't help it if I tried, but I started off as a bassoonist when I was young and played classical music pretty much exclusively until I was like 19 or 20. I listened to a lot of punk and metal and stuff though through middle school and high school. Had pretty big taste thanks to my parents who were not musicians but friends with a bunch of professional musicians. And so when I was getting ready to go to college, I was considering going to music school, and I was just too hyper to consider practicing all day. That just seemed like the worst. Now it sounds awesome. That's all I want to do. But when I was 17 or 18, when you said, what do you do in music school? And it's like, well, you practice, you take lessons and you play music like all day. And it's like, nah, we ain't going to do that. So I quit the bassoon and didn't play any music for a year and was absolutely miserable. And so I decided to pick up playing the guitar and quickly realized that the electric bass was a lot more fun for me. I have big ass hands, and it kind of sounds like an electric bassoon, but it's a lot easier to play. And you get more gigs. um, so, you know, Cliff Burton taught me to play bass. I started taking lessons and, you know, studied jazz harmony and shit like that. And just, I love Jamaican music, Caribbean music, you know, dance hall and reggae, and especially like dub, old punk, weird stuff. You know, I'm from DC, so like the Bad Brains and Minor Threat and stuff like that are a huge inspiration. I like all kinds of old thrash, and uh, it seemed like the first punk bands that I was in, grindcore was huge in Baltimore and DC at the time, and so every band around me for like 4 or 5 years was a grindcore band, and so I never played in a grindcore band, but really enjoy that. And it shares something really similar with deathcore in that it's explicitly dance music. There's a dance that goes with these breakdowns, and you know, when we're writing some of this stuff, that's the litmus test. Is the, you know, can you kind of bounce to it? Mm-hmm. You know, actually, I forget which track it was, but one of the tracks we were recording, I'm going to digress for a second, but one of the things we were recording, it wasn't happening. And Rick and I were like, oh yeah, well, we're sitting down trying to track this. Let's stand up and jump around a little bit while we play. And it started to work. So it's always good to remember that this is dance music for a particular dance. And, you know, you're right to support the action in the pit.
Very well said.
So, but yeah, I don't know. I like all that stuff. And yeah, a bunch of weird ass punk rock and Devo and Weird Al and, you know, all that stuff.
So Weird Al is a genius. I'm on record saying that, dude. Like, people sleep on Weird Al. Like, Weird Al is incredible, dude. Like,
his band is fantastic too. He has a bass player and a guitarist that he's worked with for forever that are, you know,
Weird Al is
complementary geniuses.
Yeah, Weird Al is one of the best live shows I've ever seen in my life, like hands down.
And his main instrument is the accordion. I mean, is there anything else to say? You know,
if it's an orchestra in a box,
it is, man. It's amazing.
Right.
If Weird Al wanted to write a deathcore song or even an album, like, it would be heavy as shit.
Yeah, totally.
I think we need to reach out. We need to see what all Weird Al's doing for the next record.
Right.
You guys are pretty good at getting, you know, features, extra people to jump in. I know Devin from Suicide Cages did vocals on one. That's how I found you guys. Hey, Weird Al, put it on the list. Next feature.
Right. What about you, Rick?
We'll have hit success if we can get Weird Al the feature on our album for sure.
I'm gonna make sure we work on that.
Right.
I was informed by, you know, Tony Iommi, Kurt Hammett, James Hetfield, Jeff Hanneman, and Kerry King for sure. All these different, you know, guitarists from the 80s and had careers on until now, you know. So learning Metallica songs, learning Injustice for All album, Rage Against the Machine, Tom Morello informed my early guitar playing. Single note riffs that could be heavy without chords. I thought that was something unique of his playing. And then Kurt and James from Metallica, it's like speed and, you know, throwing some single note stuff in there with the combination of chords. So I'm learning all that stuff. And then I get into skating and I start watching different skate videos, and I hear about Slayer for the first time. And they're playing two guitar players, but harmony becomes like an element that I pick up from them of like, the other guitar comes in playing it somewhere else. So it was like, wow, that's evil, and it's still single notes. But now the combination of of the guitars, makes it something cool. Later on, I got into like Sepultura and other hardcore music, and that started to really inform me as a hardcore guitarist, I guess, and deathcore guitarist. But I want to share something a little bit that I think is pretty cool, and it's something that's evolved recently with having stepped away from this type of music for a long time. Basically, from '05 to 2021, I wasn't playing metal at all, and I was playing for a church. Um, and so what has evolved is like, okay, I don't think about these guitar players or riffs anymore. I don't think about bands in particular. I think about styles. So, for example, Soulless Divider starts with this idea that goes bah, da da. So there's all this space, and the vocals fill that space. I got that idea from blues. Like, for example, a traditional blues structure will be like the whole band da 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 something something and a something something ba 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 da 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 da, and then the whole band kicks in. And so I'm like, wow, that's really cool to be like, I'm taking this blues structure and putting it to a deathcore song.
Mhm.
Or something else will be like, um, man, we really could use this transition to separate these two big parts that we're trying to put together. And I'll think about soul music and I'll think about James Brown. I'm like, how did James Brown go from, you listen to a James Brown song and you're like, this is just one groove the entire time.
Mhm.
But there's a very critical piece that they put in there to break that up at certain points. And how do they do it? Does anyone know the answer of what structural thing James Brown band would do to break up like a groove?
Breakdowns.
Breakdowns is okay, that's one. Yeah, that's good. That's a good example.
Yeah.
I was thinking particularly when they just do five stabs, da 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 da,
Right.
and then they go back into a groove.
Hmm.
And
Right.
so it's like, man, like let's do this stab thing. And I'm thinking about James Brown, and it just feels cool to it feels fun for one to be like I'm thinking about R&B and soul music right here, and I'm trying to put these structures or mechanisms into deathcore. And so I think just thinking about different styles and then how it informs deathcore for me now, I think it gives it a unique twist, and in most cases, it's like um, yeah, like if you want to liken it to a spaghetti dinner, it's like how many times have you eaten spaghetti with sautéed potatoes in it? I'm just trying to sprinkle in some different things into a dish so that it's just not the same dish over and over. Even though, there could be this dish that's like, man, I will pay for this every time. And it'll be, I like this same flavor. It's like, well, I do too. I also like to be creative and try different things. And not to say that people aren't. I personally enjoy this process of thinking about different styles and trying to insert them into deathcore.
Yeah, I think that's what drew me to drew me to playing with you, Rick, is like I can recognize that you're doing these different things. And as a fan of prog music and experimental, like genre mashing type bands, I'm that was definitely like something that I was looking for when trying to join a project. Was like I don't want to get I've never been good at playing a particular style. I felt like I've always kind of lacked whatever is needed to like fit into a box. You know what I mean? And that's always kind of frustrated me as I've been chasing whatever it is I'm looking for. Which I'm pretty sure I can say now has been Irah Nox, so that's cool. Um, but yeah, like all these fresh ideas and like Mike, you mentioned that like a lot of the things that Logan's involved with is experimental, and I wouldn't exclude Irah Nox from that category for sure.
Agreed.
One other quick thing that I think I said this last time too is I recently started thinking, here in Colorado, bluegrass is really popular. And I have a banjo, I play something on acoustic guitar that kind of resembles maybe what bluegrass guitarists might do. But so in trying to acquire, different skills with these different instruments or the acoustic, and thinking about bluegrass and seeing bluegrass bands, it dawned on me. I'm like, and this is after Morty Cordian came out. It dawned on me watching a bluegrass band. There's an upright bass, there's a banjo, there's a mandolin, there's a guitar. So you have these four strings. Well, in Irah Nox, we have a guitar, bass, and so I'm like, we've got these three different strings going on, and we're all kind of doing our own thing. And I was like, is this good? Is this bad? Is this weird? Does this make sense? And I was like, well, it makes about as much sense as bluegrass makes sense. Every single one of those strings lives in their own space, playing their own part. And does it make sense when you hear bluegrass? Sure as hell does, because people love that shit. I was in a huge crowd of people listening to this. And so I'm like, Irah Nox is kind of like a bluegrass band. All these different strings live in their own pocket, playing their own piece. And when we all play unison, just like when a bluegrass all decides to play unison or play this melody together, and there's no more all these crazy parts, it's so impactful. And so, Irah Nox is like a bluegrass band for deathcore.
If you notice, sorry, go ahead, Ian.
I was just gonna add that, like, when we were doing this and sending parts back and forth together, it's not like we were tabbing it out and sending tabs. Like, we were listening to what each other was playing. And in a lot of cases, when Rick would send me one of his songs, I would straight up just learn whatever Rick was playing by ear. And I felt like that would help inform me of what I needed to do to satisfy whatever I wanted to hear from the piece, right? So yeah, a lot of like listening to each other was extremely important when, coming up with the different instrumentation, and it was encouraged to explore and to, add your own thing to it. Like, especially with bass, I remember, like, there's these two different guitar parts doing these two different things. In a lot of cases, like bass, it's not like there's necessarily an easy rhythm part for you to latch onto all the time. You're going to have to figure out your own thing and add your own thing to this. So, which Logan was like happy to do, I think. I don't want to speak for you, but like, I just remember talking for the first time when we were all jamming in Rick's basement and just really appreciating how much each of us was able to express ourselves.
Aw, thanks, man. Yeah, the way I always handled it was when there's something that Ian's playing that I feel like I could be complimentary to or make it heavy, I followed Ian. And when Rick had something, that a riff or something going on that I felt like I could bolster or make it shine a little bit, that's who I followed, and I kind of will bounce back and forth. One of the things I wanted to say is, if you listen to the album, based on what Rick was just saying, like, we rarely give you the main heavy riff like as a unison thing or some kind of all together riff. It's like we almost always only do it like once or twice. Like we never unison, like grind out a riff for very long. We build it up and we tear it down. There's usually a statement at the top of the song, kind of like a head or something like that. But then we're in just sort of various forms of building up and tearing it down throughout the song. And then we might give it to you once all together at the end of the tune, but not always. And so I think that's cool. I think what Rick said about it having impact because it isn't happening all the time is true and is pretty, functional, songwriting.
Thinking man, deathcore.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to be careful.
Yeah, that's honestly one of my favorite things about you guys. It reminds me of like definitely my biggest influences, stuff like Botch and, Dillinger Escape Plan and stuff, where like you've basically got five people playing different songs, and somehow, there are certain linchpins from, in particular moments that guide the experience and bind it all together. And you guys are exceptional at that. And it's part of what makes it so much fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
It's a lot of fun to be a part of. Like, I don't want to understate that. Like, I think it being fun for us is the thing that keeps it together. Like, especially considering that this is an outlet for us for some not so fun subject matter and inspiration, right?
Right.
Like,
Sure.
we started on that, and I guess that's why it's so important for this to be fun, because you know of the nature of it being the outlet for us as well. Yeah.
Well, now that you guys are fully assembled as a band and play live, you guys have had the opportunity to play Denver, Grand Junction, and you guys just went to California for a couple days too. Sounds like you've got some other plans for the year live, which is kind of exciting to see you guys bring it together enough to play in front of people. How's that been going for you?
It's been really fun. It's been cool as a band to, each time you prepare for a gig, since we play, I think maybe once or twice a month has been our our flow, if you will, and that's ramping up here a little bit more. But since we play infrequently, what it means is that we come together as a band to prepare for each one of these things. It's kind of like a month build up, if you will. And in that month build up, there's a lot of communication that goes on. Sometimes it can be overwhelming because life as a just life is crazy. So it really speaks to everyone's like will and strength and want to to make this happen. We see that we're trying our best, and we sometimes will get together and one of us has fallen short because we've had less time. But so just that process of us coming together as a band for these shows is really cool because yeah, we don't get together very often. um, and so hanging out with each other is, we're building this relationship with each other as this band is going. So for me, going to California, that was like, are we going to come back as a band? Are we going to survive? And of
Great thing to have
course,
in the back of your head when you start, but you guys did well. Good job.
yeah. So no, it's been fun. Some other plans that we have, you know, playing in Casper um, in September. Hoping to book Fort Collins, hoping to book Salt Lake, hoping to go to Albuquerque. We have like a mini stretch of we have a week string of shows that we're building towards in October to go out. It starts in Florida and comes back to Colorado Springs or comes back to Denver.
Nice.
Um,
It's a
and
good one. That's good.
outside of that, just keeping up the network with people in California and hoping to go back there sooner than later for maybe two different spots. And yeah, that's kind of what's going on right now. But in a week, I mean, I think about a week or a week and a half is playing in Inglewood at Mutiny. So looking forward to featuring some different vocalists at that show, playing a song that we haven't played before that's on the record that we haven't played. So it's kind of exciting to like, oh, we have these songs that we've written, recorded, but haven't played them. So it feels like a brand new song. So let's.
We're really good at setting the bar super high for ourselves as far as like our aspirations to get out and do this stuff. And to do a lot of bands I've noticed, like when looking for a band to be in, get together like every weekend, right? And do what they need to do. And we can't operate like that. Um, so there's a lot of planning involved when you aren't like getting together on a regular basis. And I would also add that it's like that also means that it's not something that we take for granted, right?
I definitely cherish. I ch- that's the best way to describe it. I cherish when we do get together, because again, every day that we're a band is a success. It's not a given, and so the fact that we're practicing and it's like, oh well, someone's late, or man, I gotta load up all my stuff, or man, I really suck today. I didn't have these parts down. It's like I might think those things, but then I'm able to snap out of that and be like, dude, I'm in this band. Like I get to be a part of this, and that's really really cool, and really fortunate that I have a family that can help support me doing that. So
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
very well said. Very well said.
Yeah, the families deserve all the credit. I feel like a lot of us we have, everyone has people and things going on otherwise besides the project. And when a project is as serious as we take it, and as aspirational as we are, it requires the trust and cooperation of a lot of people. And when even like we're involved with you, Derek, and Brayburn Records, and like that extends to you obviously as well, and everyone involved. So just I don't know, it feels like we've been able to accomplish a lot in a little bit of time, and that is because of the trust and respect that like everyone in this network gives to each other, and that should never be undersold, for sure.
I
Amen.
I think I speak for the band when I say that we're all pretty big Suicide Cages fans, and so to have
Thank you.
the Mike being excited about what we're doing really helps to fuel things, and have the support from you. It like I don't know, it all comes together to create some really good momentum that helps us. Like Ian said, we kind of aim high, and the momentum of everybody who believes in us, especially when they are, you know, badasses in their own right, and people we look up to. That it all counts. It all propels the spaceship. So
Yeah,
well,
totally.
yeah, why do we aim high? Because Suicide Cages is aiming high. So
yeah, absolutely.
Dude, well, thank you. But it's also the cycle of support, right? That's one of the things that's so rad about this, and one of the reasons I'm so grateful to be in this moment, in this moment in history, this moment in my life, this moment in all of your lives, is how we support each other. And it's like that cycle of support is endless. It's fantastic. It's like one of us does well, we inspire the other, they do well, they inspire the original and someone else, and that love and that support can spread endlessly, and inspire fantastic artistry and playing from all of us. It's something that, as you said, Rick, like it's to be cherished. It's special, and it took me a long time too to get to that, because I think, American culture, and definitely like when I was growing up, 80s and 90s, music was so competitive, or we were taught to see it as so competitive because it was the age of like rock stars. And I've never been interested in that. I've always been more interested in teams and what we can all do together as a group. Because like when you guys were mentioning Slayer and Metallica, like I don't tend to think of those bands as, like, I don't think of Metallica, I don't think of Hetfield. I think of Hetfield and Lars, or Hetfield and Kirk. You know what I mean? Because of the alchemy of the group. And so all that to say, yeah, like I'm extremely grateful that we get to work with you guys and that we all get to support each other because it's like again, it keeps us all pushing, and it's fantastic for us to keep raising the bar for ourselves, raising the bar for each other, because all that happens is we all win, right?
As a group, as a label family, as all of these things, as friends, as fathers in this particular group, all of us are dads as well. But I think it's exactly what it is. One of us will have a win, and I find myself conversing with multiple people in our group about that win and how excited we are for that person or that band or that group to have made it to that level that they wanted to get to. And it definitely inspires all of us. It gets us thinking about what we can do to help support that and get somebody else or one of the other bands or bring somebody else on board to do that thing in a better way with support for everybody. And I think that's what's very wonderful about what we're doing here. And again, guys, Mortic Origin, an amazing record, second pressing on CD and cassette right now. We're waiting for some vinyl to hit. I'm excited about that. There's a new Suicide Cages record coming. I get excited about all of these things, but to have you guys sit and talk about the process, it's fascinating to me, and it means the world to me too. So I appreciate you guys giving us some insight today. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I hope personally that I was able to articulate sort of all the stuff that's percolating in underneath this hat. But yeah, I appreciate you guys having acknowledgement for oneself and what oneself needs to do to be healthy, happy, and to be helpful to their family is important. But then as it relates to the community that all of these bands belong to, like competitiveness, is one thing, but having love for oneself and then having love for the community is it's important. That's why things can stay healthy and rich and vibrant and changing and flowing and stay exciting. And so something I'm happy to be practicing with this Denver community, and trying to reach out to other communities too, to be like, we see what you're doing, and can we be a part of it, and can you be a part of our community out here as well? So stoked.
Definitely.
Community is an increasingly important thing in our time in society, especially communities that thrive around positive support. And I am incredibly thankful to be a part of this community in particular. As a parent, as a musician, and just as someone who doesn't get out and experience the world as much as I would like to. You guys are a lifeline for me, so thank you very much.
Likewise, nothing but gratitude here, huh? Sorry, go ahead, Logan.
Oh yeah. Hey, before I forget, we have I mentioned Danny, but we have a shit hot drummer, Jason, that should get some props for
Yeah, dude.
for just being an absolute badass and really enthusiastic. He's always checking. He's like, he's always trying to improve. He's always trying to bring it, and he always does. But I feel like as the rhythm section guy, I gotta give a shout out.
I spent a ton of time with Jason in the car ride out to California and got to know him. And I just want to say that, like, when we were discussing our taste in music and noting that everyone has like this diverse kind of influence, that also goes for Jason, and I'm sure Danny as well. I remember discovering Danny when he was the vocalist for a band called Burning Through Darkness. And then I remember thinking, like, I want to make a song with this guy. Like, he's super talented. I love his voice. I watched like some videos on TikTok of him, performing vocals live. and I was just so impressed, and I knew I had to work with him. And so when we were looking to work with a range of vocalists, it was like heavy on my mind to get Danny involved. I think he's super versatile, super talented, and I'm really happy to be working with him. And yeah, Jason, incredible drummer, obviously. The dude didn't even drum for a long time. He said he was producing EDM and doing the DJ thing for a while. And I was just, it blows my mind because drumming is such a challenging thing to learn and to do. And I'm just like, you took a break and you just shred like that? Like, how does that work?
Right.
His
So,
favorite
yeah.
fusion drummer is Phil Collins.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah. I was like, yeah, all right, my man.
And he works at a hula hoop factory. This guy
He works
is
at a
just
hula
as
hoop
interesting as
factory.
all the rest of you.
Right.
Yeah. No doubt, man. I mean, just awesome to be working with such interesting and people with stories and like, you know, unique experiences. You know, yeah, someone who doesn't get out much. Again, I just can't be grateful enough to know all of you guys. Very cool. Everyone involved,
Definitely.
even the ones not here.
Irah Nox is not a band without Jason and Danny and Logan and Ian, and yeah, so for sure.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, thank you again, guys, for the time. I guess I just want to end this by saying each one of us has a lot of things going on, and each one of us is doing amazing things, and I'm very proud of all of you. But Ian's got something called Dead Records. Reach out to him directly. He wants to have these conversations. Logan has a few other bands. I'll let him tell you what those are in just a second. And Ian does some pretty cool recording and some other stuff at the house too. I know Rick is doing some mastering and some production. Mike does graphic design. I got a little label. We all have 15 other things going on. So if any of you that are listening to this podcast and have made it this far, thank you. Check out the band, of course, Irah Nox and Suicide Cages, but reach out to any of us because we all want to interact with you. We all want to talk about the other creative things that we're doing. Part of this community that we're talking about is bringing everyone that's listening into this. So if I can just throw that out for all of us, I would love to do that. Logan, let's mention.
I am in a band called Bolognium, which is we mentioned Weird Al.
I love it.
Weird Al is a huge inspiration. Bolognium is kind of a comedy Devo-esque accordion punk band. Please check out our YouTube. We have the two primary songwriters, founders of Bolognium, met in film school and have a trauma movie or two between them.
Nice.
And so we have pretty high concept music videos for every single song we've ever put out, all in the B, C movie, sub B movie slasher sort of aesthetic. I'm in a surf band with my wife called the Clendathu Surf Riders Club. It's kind of more traditional Dick Dale Adventures kind of surf stuff, although it's a little bit punked out. I'm in a band called the Plastic Rakes, which sounds kind of like the Minutemen. That's tied to a band called the Morning Sickness that's been a band in Denver since the early 90s. And I do a band with my friend Kevin from the band Triplet. That's just two bass guitars and a drum machine. It's called Twin Heads. That's kind of fusion-y. And I think that's it. Other stuff too, but I'm always working on other stuff.
Just a couple things.
But just a couple of things. Those are the ones that are more or less active. Go check them out. They're out there in the world somewhere.
Nothing but inspiration. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Anything anybody else wants to mention?
No, thank you guys, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon.
One
Yeah,
last
thank you.
question for you.
Oh yeah.
Who should we interview next? Who should we have on the show?
Circling Over, Mood Swing
Okay.
Misery. There's lots of bands.
We'll follow a couple
maybe-
of those for sure.
maybe hitting up a different community and reaching out to Ryan from Ritual Skateboards and talking to him.
Church Fire.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I would love to have Church Fire on here. That's what I'm really looking forward to your guys' show at Mutiny with them. Church Fire is like top 3 bands for me, like not just at the municipal level, but like ever. They are absolutely one of the best live shows I've ever seen every time I see them. Like they're incredible.
I'll be at that show to see them as well,
Yeah.
along with you guys, because I haven't seen them yet live.
Oh my God. It's life-changing. Like it's incredible. Like I
Can't
cannot,
wait.
yeah, I
Amazing.
cannot get enough of that band.
Yeah. I think it would be cool if you were to maybe give a chat with Lloyd from Death Slope Productions out here on the
Oh,
Western Slope.
yeah.
Lloyd's been crushing it out here, booking show after show, reaching out to different venues, just trying to grow the scene and the market, which is great because I think Junction is excellently located between like Albuquerque, Salt Lake, and Denver.
Sure.
And it's a college town, and it's just a budding scene out here. So I would love to hear more from him and his experience so far with the growth that's been achieved in a short amount of time.
Definitely.
Great suggestions, guys. Irah Nox, check it out. This, of course, is Six Disc Changer. Derek and Mike, thanks so much for your time, guys. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, dudes.